Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's going to be doing a huge comparison with all of the different powertrains you can get in the Jeep Wrangler and the Jeep Gladiator. Now, the only powertrain that is not present is the 392 powertrain. Now, if you guys follow my channel, you know that I personally own a 392, so I will talk about that powertrain a little bit in today's video. I should have brought it today, but I just didn't even think about it. Yeah, that's just how it goes. Anyways, a huge shout out, thank you to the Larry Miller, Dodge Ram, Jeep Chrysler here in Provo, Utah for giving me some time with, well, all of these Wranglers and Gladiators. Well, actually, Wranglers and Gladiator, rather. Links to the inventory in the description down below. If you have any questions whatsoever, just ask for Ryan. And then on a side note, if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below. Let's get into it. Now, before we dive into the powertrains, I do need to quickly talk about powertrain availability with both the vehicles. So you guys can see the Gladiator there on the edge. You can either get the V6 or the Eco-Diesel with the Gladiator, that is it. And then with the Wranglers, you can get the V6, you can get the 2.0 turbo, you can get the Eco-Diesel, or you can get the 4xe, or you could also get the 392 V8. So the Wrangler has 5 different powertrains, the Gladiator has 2. So starting with the 3.6 liter Pentastar V6, it goes through an 8-speed automatic transmission. It's a 3.6 liter V6, as I just stated. It is good for 285 horsepower and then 260 pound-feet of torque, with fuel economy being high teens to low 20s depending on the vehicle that you have this powertrain within. Now, moving from that to the 2.0 turbo, it's a turbocharged 2-liter 4-cylinder that goes through an 8-speed automatic transmission. Also, you can get that one with a manual. Forgot to mention that. But anyways, with this powertrain, it's good for 270 horsepower and then 295 pound-feet of torque. Average fuel economy is going to be high teens, low 20s, depending on how you drive, and again, the vehicle that you have the powertrain in. Now, popping over to the Eco-Diesel, this is a 3-liter turbo diesel V6 that goes through an 8-speed automatic transmission. It is good for 260 horsepower and then 442 pound-feet of torque. Average fuel economy is going to be somewhere in the mid to high 20s, again, depending on the specific vehicle that you have this powertrain within. And then we've got the 4xe, which is a turbocharged 2-liter 4-cylinder paired to a hybrid system and an 8-speed automatic transmission. It's good for 375 horsepower and then 470 pound-feet of torque. Now, average fuel economy is kind of a confusing situation because this is a plug-in hybrid, as you can see. And so what that means is you could technically get infinite fuel economy if you just always charge this and you never run the gas engine. But on gas power only, it averages about 20-ish miles per gallon. If you don't charge it whatsoever, then you can expect to average mid-20s with this powertrain. So again, that's just buying it and literally never charging it. But if you charge it all the time, then the MPGe rating is 49. And then the last powertrain that's obviously not here is the 6.4 Hemi. It is good for 470 horsepower, 470 pound-feet of torque. It's a naturally aspirated 6.4 liter V8. Goes through an 8-speed automatic transmission. And I personally own a Rubicon 392, and I get about 16 miles per gallon on average. So as you can see, it is the least efficient powertrain. But what you have to remember with the 392 is you can only get it with a Rubicon package, which means that it's actually not too inefficient, because if you get the V6 or the 2.0 turbo with the Rubicon package, you're going to be averaging around what I am getting with my 392. So just kind of, yeah, take that into account. Before we move forward with the video, I do want to mention, if you want to see more content just like this, then I recommend you subscribe, because I post videos every single day. Now let's show some acceleration clips. I'm going to start with the V6, then we're going to go to the 2.0 turbo, then we're going to go to the Eco-Diesel, then we're going to go to the 4xe, and then the last acceleration clip will be with the 392. As we'll see here, full throttle. Again, it gets up and it moves, but just the whole JL transformation was such a big improvement. Wow! That was quick. So we're gonna get our acceleration here with the Eco-Diesel. Yeah, just tons of torque. Look at that. Yeah, this thing just moves. But anyways, let's see how this, whoa! Yeah, this thing's quick, but it's not horrible. And now let's quickly talk about benefits of all of the powertrains. So starting with the V6, this is the most simplistic powertrain. It's extremely reliable, tried and true. Obviously, it's the least powerful out of the bunch, and so it's the least exciting to drive. But if you want a very dependable powertrain, then this is going to be the one to go for. And it's also the lowest cost because, well, it's, again, the simplest powertrain, so least expensive. Now, popping over to the 2.0 turbo, this has actually been shown to be extremely reliable as well. Not quite as reliable as the V6, but still a really reliable powertrain. Gets good fuel economy like the V6, and the big benefit of this over the V6 is the power is just so much better, especially at high elevation. We're at about 4,000 feet elevation here, and let me tell you, being turbocharged helps out quite substantially. And so I do see this as a premium powertrain compared to the V6. The only downside I can see with the 2.0 turbo is if you're constantly in the turbos, then your fuel economy is not going to be all that great. And on top of that, if you lift it, your fuel economy is probably going to be worse than if you lifted a V6, from what I've seen so far with people that have lifted 2.0 turbos. And then, like I said, reliability is not quite as good as the V6, although it's still really solid. Now, popping over to the diesel, downsides with this powertrain, I guess we'll start off with, is the fact that, well, it's expensive. It's like a $4,000 option with the Wrangler and with the Gladiator, so quite a bit more expensive than the other two powertrains. Fuel economy is great with this powertrain, though. Power is amazing. This basically just feels like a beefed up version of the 2.0 turbo. Obviously, it's a diesel, so, you know, it does perform substantially different. It shifts at a much lower RPM rate compared to the 2.0 turbo because it's a diesel, not a gas engine, but it's super quick. I would say that the 2.0 turbo and the diesel feel pretty close in terms of acceleration. It would be close if you did a drag race. But also, from a reliability standpoint, the Eco-Diesel used to not be a really reliable powertrain, but the modern Eco-Diesel is actually very reliable. And so we got good reliability so far across the board on the powertrains. Now, popping to the 4xe. Well, let's start with downsides. Reliability is a downside. So the whole electrical system and everything has had some glitches with this powertrain, and so it is actually the least reliable powertrain that Jeep has right now. Again, the 2.0 turbo is rock solid. It's just the whole 4xe part of the system. But there are some key benefits. So first off, I don't know if the tax credit still applies, but you were able to get a tax credit in the past on the 4xe, which was cool because, again, it's a plug-in hybrid, so that's how you get the tax credit. Fuel economy is the best on this until you lift it just like the 2.0 turbo. If you lift one of these, put big tires on it, then you won't get horrible fuel economy, but like it's not going to be nearly as good. You take a pretty big hit, and that's just with turbocharged engines and with hybrids. They seem to take a much bigger hit than naturally aspirated engines when you lift them. But overall, great fuel economy, tons of usability, and the fact that you can charge it, I think, is a huge benefit. And again, the 6.4 Hemi that, well, is not here. Tried and true, again, that engine's been out for quite some time. Super reliable powertrain, tons of power, tons of torque. Yeah, fuel economy is not the greatest, but for a Wrangler, it actually isn't horrible. Again, the fact that I'm able to average at like 16 miles per gallon on a pretty consistent basis with a hot rod V8, I think is pretty cool. Big downside is the fact that you can only get it in the Rubicon 392, and so it means that the cost of entry is really expensive. If you want that powertrain, you basically have to spend over $70,000, whereas like I can get a $30,000 Wrangler with, you know, the 2.0 turbo, well, not quite $30,000, a little bit more than $30,000 with a 2.0 turbo or the V6. If I want the Eco-Diesel, you got to step up a little bit. If you want the 4xe, you got to step up a little bit. But if you want the 392, you got to step up a bit. So to pull everything together, I think that you should go for the V6 if you just want something that's simplistic, that's going to last a long time, and is not going to be finicky with whatever you do with the Wrangler or Gladiator. Again, you can build it up, and, you know, again, the performance isn't necessarily going to be fantastic, but, you know, everything's going to work, and, yeah, just makes sense. 2.0 turbo, similar situation. Again, like I said, the only downside to this powertrain is it's not quite as reliable as the V6, but it's still really solid, really high up there. You do lose quite a bit of fuel economy when you lift this powertrain, so again, just take that into account. Modifications seem to affect it a little bit more than the V6. So I think that it's kind of like a great in-between. If you want just a little bit more performance, you're okay with giving up fuel economy, and, you know, you want to build out your Wrangler, it's not going to cause you issues. Moving over to the Eco-Diesel, this is probably my favorite powertrain, even though I currently own a 392, just because of the fuel range that you get with this powertrain. I love diesels, I love the low-end torque, and so if you have the money, I would recommend upgrading to this over a 2.0 or the V6, because it's just such a rock-solid powertrain, and super torquey, super powerful. The 4xe, I think this is a great powertrain if you're going to keep your Wrangler stock. Now, again, like I said, you can modify it, but again, this powertrain's kind of finicky. So, yeah, you're just taking some chances. Again, new technology, so just understand you're on the cutting edge. And so, yeah, again, reliability is not necessarily going to be the best thing with the 4xe yet, but I'm sure they'll improve it over time. And then again, the 392 that's not here. If you just want a crazy hot rod V8 that's, well, honestly is just the coolest thing ever that it's been put into a Wrangler. Then yeah, $392, again, just very expensive. And what I have to say with the $392 is that's a type of vehicle that you get if you're probably going to keep for a really long time, just because of the expense of that vehicle. And so yeah, let me know which powertrain you guys prefer, and let me know if this helped you guys out, hopefully, with deciding which powertrain to go for with the Wrangler or with the Gladiator. And again, a huge shout out and thank you to the Larry Miller Dodge Ram Jeep Crest here in Provo, Utah for giving me some time with all of these vehicles. Check out the info in the description down below. Ask for Ryan. I'll see ya.